Okay, so here's the situation. I have two major projects that I want to work on. The first one being my portfolio website, and the second one is sort of like a hosting platform. Currently, the way I have things set up is that whenever I work on a project, if it's static, like the audio visualizer, that's just hosted on GitHub Pages because it's free and it's pretty simple from the GitHub website itself. But if I work on something that needs to be run in the backend, say like the image segmentation or background remover, then that has to be like hosted on an actual server. So for that, I use OnRender. Ideally, I just like to create a central place where I can host everything. I could technically post all of my applications on Render, but I'm worried if they remove their free tier, like a certain other hosting website. So yeah, that's the main motivation for that. But I decided to kind of like group these two projects together. So therefore, when you go to, let's say, website.com, that just goes to my portfolio website. But if you go to app1.mywebsite.com, like the subdomain, then that actually reroutes you to the actual application itself. So I've thought a lot more about this, and I've even discussed it with my manager for how to actually, design a system like this. And it was quite interesting. Okay, so from the discussion, I basically created like this whole like system diagram thing. First of all, the main thing is that we have now a virtual machine from Google Cloud instead of using OnRender. So this will have our basic like Nginx, our portfolio website, all the different applications. And Nginx basically will handle all incoming requests and like map them accordingly. But the issue with like the virtual machine, if you want it to be free, you have very limited processing power. And as you know, like a lot of my projects are very like CPU intensive. I've tried it and it doesn't run. To solve that issue, what this does is that the app itself doesn't actually performs the processing. What it does is that it posts that request, say an image for like image segmentation. What it does is that it posts that image to a database and puts it in like a to process like column. And then what this does now is that I have my processing server, which is basically going to be my laptop, which runs like cron jobs. So let's say if for app 1 is our image segmentation, what that does is that it fetches to process requests like images, for example, fetches that, processes that, sends it back into the database for that specific app, puts that in the ready column. This app will then fetch from the ready and serve it back to the user. I don't know if that made any sense. So that's kind of cool, but that will take a long time to implement, and I have to go back and refactor a lot of my projects to take in this new design. This is the block that we're going to be developing in today's video, which is the portfolio website. But what do we need to develop for our portfolio website? For that, we actually need to develop three main components. The first one is that we need to develop the front end for it, which is going to be using React. And then we need to have a backend in Express to fetch from GitHub and update the database. And you guessed it, the third one is the database itself, where it's going to store all of my GitHub repositories. And the main reason for having this database is that we don't want to fetch from GitHub every time a user visits the website. In an example, let's say if like 100 people visit the website, we don't really want to make 100 requests. I think there's like an access token, so I don't want to reach the limit for that. It is technically kind of like a bad design, I would say, because you don't really need to make 100 requests, because I don't like post on GitHub that often. So now that we know what components we need to develop, let's actually start coding.
Young when a young sin a piece of when I'm done in a head spin a cash spin a brother I'm the bread when a bread but the wrong than you and be the soul son the Johnny Glover weapon lover and them so they never bubble.
Okay, creating a database.
Started this all on my own with a venomous flow as the C to the E to the O. I came in goal with the fitness. Millions are lower to witness.
I've just been exploring a little bit of how to connect MongoDB. So now if we just do npm start, you can see that it actually starts it. It connects to MongoDB and then fetches all the repo data from GitHub. And then in the loop, it just adds that to the database. And here is the actual repositories.
You know I don't fuck with you, nah. Twitting your piece.
Okay, so the backend is now complete. So we have right now a cron job running. Right now I've just set it to every minute. Once I've actually deployed it, this will be running every day, maybe once a day. And then I've also defined an API route, HTTP localhost/fetch. This will be used by our React frontend. This will just fetch all of the repositories. So when we send the request, then you can see that this actually responds with. So you can see here that this is all of the data for all of the repositories. We then have the actual, like, it runs here, so we can actually just refresh that and it shows all of the repository data. And yeah, now we can actually move into developing the front end. By the way, if you're enjoying the video so far, then please leave a like. It really helps the channel out and it's fairly simple to do. And also, if you want to see more software engineering projects from myself, then please subscribe. We recently hit 1,000 subscribers. So thank you so much for that. And let's continue with the video. Alright, so this is what the final project looks like. You basically have like a navigation bar, and then if you click that, you go to my background. This is just some filler text that I filled in. Then you can go to my skills, you can go to all of my projects. These projects are fetched from the database, so they kind of like render initially. You can click on view code to see the code for that, and it brings you to the repository, and then you have some contact information. So yeah, that's gonna be it for this video. If you have any ideas for like the design or architecture, then please leave a comment below. I'd love to hear it. And if you want to see more projects, then check out this video right here.